I want to quick remind you guys of what we did on the test yesterday. When we did the test, one of the questions was about the detailed, what are the steps of a detailed estimating process? You guys have done an estimating of 5,000 square foot residential building with your friend Chad, and you did it with an Excel sheet, detailed, awkward Excel sheet that drove you probably nuts. If it didn't drive you nuts, then you probably didn't read it good. And then we talked about the steps of estimating, guys. I'm going to go over steps of estimating one more time. Step number one, understand the scope of work. We talked about understanding the scope of work, guys. Step number two is the takeoff, which you are doing the takeoff right now for the commercial project. Determining the bill of material. Luckily, in the softwares, guys, you're going to pull all this information directly from the software, the bill of material. Pricing and laboring, no question asked about this one in the commercial project. That's step number 4, guys. It's all into the McCormick software that we use. Extending and totaling, done for you. You guys remember when I walked you through the software, you hit extend, and based on the labor units and the price unit that you want, and it extend everything for you. So that's step number 5, extending and totaling. Estimate summary. Estimate summary, guys, that's summarizing everything that you have done, labor and material so far. These what we covered chapter 1 through chapter 4. Chapter 5 takes 3 more steps, guys. Chapter 5 in particular talks about the overhead and the profit. So determining the break-even cost. So step number 5 is, step number 5 is 7 is overhead and profit, and then bid analysis and bid proposal. That will be chapter 6 when we go over this one. Any comments, guys? Any questions about what we're going to be doing? So we're going to talk a little bit about determining the break-even. The break-even is from chapter 5. So go ahead and be in chapter 5 if you don't mind. Okay, a couple of things, guys, before we go ahead and start. So this is just an idea. Why does anybody want to break even? Break even is called floating. You're not making money, but you're paying all your expenses. So nobody obviously wants to break even. Everybody wants to have profit. But this is what telling you, why do we care about the break even, guys? Because the break even will decide how much it's going to cost you to do this job, labor and material. Without knowing how much it's going to cost you, you will not be able to know how to sell the project to the customers. So so knowing the break even is a big deal. So it just talks about when you guys go through the break-even analysis process, you have to make some judgment about intangible things, job condition, labor productivity, material requirements, waste, theft, small tools, direct job expenses, overhead. So these, after you get your break-even stuff, you can add or deduct based on all these conditions. This is a few ideas, guys, about making judgment is not tossing a coin. Of course, it has to be educated judgment based on your experience, and the more experience you guys have, the better judgment you're going to have of the term break even. You will be to avoid break even. Okay, so this is just a couple of things, guys, about when you know your break even, how much it's going to cost you, you know how much you're going to be selling the project to the customers. Labor hours. This is where I want you guys to to pay a little bit of attention now. Up to the bid summary, if you guys remember, we have a list of all the prices and a list of the labor hours. Now we're going to assign a labor dollar to the labor hour. That's, they call it labor hours. So we have the break even. Then we have our labor hours. We take them from the price and laboring sheet, guys, into the labor work summary. If you guys remember the Excel sheet that I did with you, the same thing McCormick will do, guys. Labor unit adjustment. Before you assign Adam, my friend, and Joe, before you assign a dollar value for your labor, Jeff, you're going to sit there and I said, here's my 25 hours to do this job, or 2,500 hours. Should I adjust it based on certain conditions? So they go through so-called labor unit adjustment, guys, and there's a couple of things that you have to do before you assign a dollar value for them. So total man hours or fixed man hours for specific conditions, determine labor unit adjustment. And this just talks about, guys, an experienced person after the software spits a 1,000 hour for you. Before you through this 1,000 hour, assign a dollar value for it and submit it as your bid. Gentlemen, you have to analyze it based on your experience, add or deduct from it. Okay, here's a couple of things, guys. A list of things that Mr. Mike Holtz, and rightfully so, things that you have to adjust when you adjust your labor. Look at this. We have estimated labor hours, $81. Then based on the condition, building condition, change orders, embedded and exposed wiring, construction schedule, job location, labor skills, ladders and scaffolds, management material, remodeling, repetitive factor, restrictive work, shift work, teamwork, temperature. All these guys, if you can see it, all these will add or deduct from your labor. All these will add or deduct from labor. Any comments, guys, about adjusting your labor units before you assign a dollar value for it? Kerry, my friend, any question about adjusting it? So you carried the $81, then you adjusted them to 86 here by adding 10% for ladders and scaffolds because that takes more work, and deducting minus, it looks like the teamwork, minus 5% a deduction because the team is teamwork. That's based on they're working good as a team, so they can produce more. You can deduct out of your system. So who cares? You're going to keep this in mind, guys. After you get your big lump sum dollar value here, you need to look at these values, look at these description of these conditions, and see, should I adjust my labor? Any comments, guys, about adjusting the labor units after you get your labor units? In the software that we have, guys, McCormick software, the labor unit you're going to see at the end, you can up it or lower it down. You can add a lot of things to your labor unit based on the conditions. Any comments about labor units? Adjustment. They call it labor units adjustment. Additional labor, so you add it for job that might apply. So additional labor. And so adjusting the labor unit first, and then you have to ask yourself, do I need additional labor to do additional things? Look at this, for example. Jeff, demolition. Are we going to be doing the demolition, job site meetings, 2 hours, mobilization and demobilization of the equipment, the trailer, that's going to take 4 hours, and service and warranty, it looks like they're adding 2 hours. And they're adding miscellaneous material items 80%. So they keep adding more adjustment to your labor units. So it's really interesting, guys. Look at that. You take the 86 that you already adjusted and you readjusted it again. So I always say use this one as a guide. After you find your labor for the project, ask yourself all these questions. Do I have to account for as-built, demolition, environment disposal? If yes, you might have, and you will have to add more labor to deal with it. As-built plans, this is just talks about each one of them, guys. As we all know, the ones who are in the field or the ones who are not in the field, when you finish the project, guys, when you build the building, we need to maintain the building for 50 to 100 years. So you need to give detailed information about your project to the owner. These detailed information, they put them in an as-built. So branch circuits and feeders and equipment, so you have to account for it. Include labor created, so you need to account for whoever is going to be doing the as-built. Demolition, if you have to remove certain walls before you start your construction, guys, then not you, but if they have to remove certain walls, they'll ask you to go disconnect and reconnect certain circuits. If that's to happen in your job, you have to accommodate more man hour for it. Make sense? Is it common sense? It might be just as educated guess, like they say here. Environmental hazardous material include preparation, packaging, shipping, and proper disposal. That need also to be accounted as man hour who's going to be preparing it, as well as expense. This is just a suggestion that subcontracted to a company that's smarter than you in this business, instead of spending so much dealing with asbestos, for example, which you're not qualified to do. So probably if there's any hazard, chemical hazard or asbestos hazard, you might have to put another subcontractor to do it. Excavation, trenching, and backfill into a major project. So this is, you have to take into consideration, guys, you guys are going to be digging a trench there. Do you know if it's going to be a rock bed down there? Can you go 2 feet in the ground? Is it going to be wetland? So that's why trenching, you might have to add more or less dollars for your trenching, or even subtract it. We Jeff, of course, disagree with me, but I heard this over and over, guys, from Parsons. Dave Karski, always, we're not in a dirt business yet. If we have a major dirt business, we hire people in the dirt business to do it. They do it more efficient than we are. So that's what also Lou's suggestion, guys. Subcontract the dirt business to somebody who's smarter than you are. Job location, area of the shop, you need to add travel time. If your job location is far away from where most of your labor works, guys, you need to accommodate for the time to travel there. More difficult to manage the job if it's further away and bring the material, so that has to add to your labor. Job meetings. Every week, there's a weekly meetings, guys, safety meetings and coordination meetings for every job, weekly meeting for the disciplines. You have to accommodate who's going to be doing the weekly meeting and allocate some dollar values for the staff who are doing the meeting. Any comments, any questions? Did they put you to sleep, guys? No? Does it make sense? All these, does it make sense, Jeff? They're common sense? Okay, so that's, a lot of this stuff is common sense, guys. Match up of existing equipment. This is interesting. Matching up of existing equipment. With being, guys, in projects as an engineer, and you walk and they have a GE switchgear, and you will match up their GE switchgear by adding to it. So you get it. Now you're getting into more time to go coordinate. How are you going to match up to this lineup of switchgear? So that if you have to match existing equipment, then you might be married with certain manufacturer. You might have to do a lot of coordination. So that's will add to your labor. Miscellaneous material, 80% to the total estimate hours to install miscellaneous materials. That's not accounted for. Mobilization, demobilization, putting your trailer and removing your trailer from the site. Andrew, my friend, your dad is a superintendent, right? So he's going to coordinate all this. Who's going to put the trailer, if any? Sometimes, guys, the general contractor will give you an office in their trailer. Sometimes they require you to have your own trailer if it's a bigger project. So you'll have Parsons trailer, and every discipline have their own trailer, but you have to pull the trailer in, pull the trailer out. All these have to be accommodated as a project manager. I want to remind you, Darren, this class is not just about estimating. Everything that we do, guys, is related directly to project management. So as a project manager, you have to accommodate they call it demobilization and mobilization of your equipment. Non-productive time. It says 5% for non-productive time, guys. That's the people talking about, we're human beings. We like to talk about grandmas and grandpas and other stuff. So you have to accommodate for that one. Non-productive time. Breaks get longer when the project get longer, right, Jeff? Now you know the plumbers and you know the heating and cooling guys, and you made friends on the side, so your breaks might take longer. So you have to accommodate for that one. If the project is getting longer, you get to know the people, and if you don't have direct supervision, guys, for project managers, I mean, when you have 10 electricians taking 5 minutes each extra on their breaks, it might. I don't like to say do that, but you know, you have to kind of watch that. Put it this way. Non-productive, distracting job condition. Okay, this is, you're working on the beach. Somebody like Adam, working on the beach, and now how, you know, it might be distracting a little bit for some of us, right, Aaron, my friend? Beach, marina, other places where there's nice cars moving or nice objects or nice people, so might distract it. So these are ideas, guys. Now this is, remember, this is done in Florida, so you know, you have a lot of beaches there. Inspection tours. There's a lot of inspection, guys, not just electrical inspection. So if the OSHA inspector walks in, or the building inspector walks in, or the electrical inspector walks in, it might interrupt your flow of energy, right? As a worker, so you have to make sure that you accommodate for that one.
Usually where the more team efficiency you have, the more non-productive time you could have.
The more team efficiency, there's a difference between team efficiency and friendship. If the team is efficient, they can work in less amount of time and still have fun. You know, I told you guys, there's a contractor, low voltage contractor, who always tell when they work to finish a project around Christmas, go take the afternoon off and go shop for Christmas and holidays. So there's a bottom line, you're not dealing with objects, guys. You're not dealing with machine. We're dealing with a human being. If they're producing for you, give them the time. Plans and specification. Um, Adequate drawing specification not provided. So if you don't have a good set of plans and specification, obviously you're going to accommodate for the mistake you're going to have. Public safety. If you have to install traffic cones, barricades, security gates, flaggers, or standby personnel, you have to accommodate for these one. Read specification for labor safety. So these are all these guys. Security. Does the facility have a security? Do you have to notify the security people every time you get in and out? That will take too much time when you're being escorted to your work. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast on these? They're common sense. I'm going to go into the more stuff, more good stuff. Service and warranty. No job is installed perfectly, so add some labor to the estimate to cover services and warranties they're going to be doing. Site condition. Traffic condition, parking, unloading and loading material in downtown Minneapolis, guys. When you send Ace Electric there, it will take longer to park, longer to find a place, longer to unload and load. So that has to be taken into consideration. Parking and storage spaces, potential problems for projects. Subcontractor supervision. If you have a low voltage contractor doing your low voltage stuff, you also have to pay attention to supervising those guys. Require for your electrician to supervise them, coordinate with them, put the conduit on the boxes, if any. So that has to be accommodated for. Power, labor to ensure the temporary power, emergency power available must be included in the bed, guys. If you are to provide a temporary power for the construction site, you have to include that one in your bed. Training. Training and certification for your electrician. If you have a program, you have to add this one somehow, capture this one in your beds. Okay, so that's basically the stuff, guys, about labor, the adjustment of labor units. Any comments about the adjustment of labor units? Any comments, any questions about the adjustment of labor units? Please read this chapter, guys. If you are to be a good project manager, these are common sense, good to remind yourself. If you're going to be a designer like my friend Darren, for example, or Chad, it's FYI only, right? So, but labor cost. Labor cost, now we adjusted our labor. Now we're going to slam that labor by a dollar value and get the dollar value of our labor. How do you do how do you assign a dollar value for your labor? So the rate that you're going to be per man hour or person hour. Okay, the total adjusted estimated labor is so here's an example. We have 110 hours, and the rate that I'm going to be shooting for is $18 an hour. Where the heck do you get $18 an hour? I must be in Florida. And then what you do, guys, you take the hours. You have done that with me. You take the hours, multiply them by the dollars, and gentlemen, you got yourself hours by dollars, and you get yourself almost $2,000. Anybody does not know that? You guys did it with Excel sheet. So you take, and now, where did you get the $18? That's what I like what they're saying here. Where did you get the $18? I told you guys what did they say, $30 for the residential project? We did $30 for residential project. For the commercial project, we did $33 for the journeyman's, and I can't remember, was it $20 for the apprentices? So we assigned certain values for the commercial project, labor rate per hour. Okay, so you can calculate this value, Joe, my friend, in two ways. Number one, you can use the so-called the shop average or the job average. I think this is a new concept. Take this, gentlemen, take this one. You keep track, Jeff, of all your labor over 6 months, all your labor for the projects that you were working on over 6 months. So I have, in April, I paid $24,000, 30, 36, 24, 30, 36 for all these projects I'm working on. And then this is how many hours each month. And then you divide them. Then what you do is, guys, is you add all your dollars and you divide them by all your hours, and you end up with $18. So that's called the shop average. The shop average. So what's your shop average? $63 here. A lot of shop averages, guys, are $63. People are bidding at $63, right? That's your shop average. Any question about shop average? Very easy. Keep track of all your hours over 6 months, all your dollars over 6 months, add them up, and divide the dollars per the hours, give you 18 based on this job. Okay, the second one, so we have job average. What's job average? The job average, guys, is what we did, what you guys did with your friend Chad. We have a foreman, we're paying him 25,000 an hour. Now remember, this does not include benefits. 25,000 an hour. We have journeyman, we're paying him 20,000 an hour. That's a cheap journeyman. You know, we paid hours what? 33. And an apprentice, and we're paying the three apprentices, we're paying him 15,000 hours. So that will maintain the ratio, guys, 2 to 1. Because typically your foreman is a journeyman. Can you put a foreman who's not even a journeyman at least? Well, how would you be a foreman unless you're at least licensed as a journeyman? It's not a master. Okay, gentlemen, I have 5 people team. I'm paying them. This is how the money, each one of them is paid. So you take the dollars that you're paying for your team, the 5 people team, divided by how many people, and you came up with 18,000 an hour. Now, if you want to do it in Minnesota, guys, piece of cake. Change this one into $33. Foreman. I don't know if you need a foreman, but if you want to put, that will be part of your system. So 33, and pay each one of those guys $20, and you can find the job average. Any comments, any questions about the job average? Probably one of the most important thing in this chapter is the job average and the job average. Any comments, guys? Any questions? Job average and job average. Piece of cake. Then you get into the burden. Now we got the job and the job average. Now you need to pay Social Security on those guys, right? Medicare, worker compensation insurance, work employee benefits. All these have to be burden added to the labor, right? You have to accommodate for this. Moving on so here's how they suggest for all these values, guys. Oops. Oh, I don't want to go there. Okay, here you go. They suggest Social Security add 7.65, unemployment 4, Medicare 1.45, work compensation is 10. This is when you work with your accountant, guys, and people who do all this stuff for you. So these are in addition, that's your burden. These are going to be your burden above and beyond your dollar value for your labor. Any comments, any questions? So Jeff, if your dollar is $18 an hour, your job average, you need to accommodate a burden for each one of these. So you keep upping your dollar value to pay for all these stuff. Any comments, guys? Any questions? Jamie, does it make sense? In any business, not just in this business. Employee benefit. Then you have to add employee benefit. You're going to give them dental, right? Medical, pension, God forbid, 401k, and all these benefits that you're going to do. The package, guys, the 292 is giving right now, is it 64, something like this, Darren? 64. That will include $33 bring home, and the rest is another $31 as benefit and dues and other things. So you have to accommodate, guys, for all this stuff. Any comments, any questions? Burden as well as benefits. Burden and benefits. So we got my burden, got my benefits. And so that's it. So you get your labor, guys. You accommodate, you adjust your labor. You add the dollar value for your labor, and you adjust it based on the burden, based on your burden. Now you go to the total material cost. Now we leave the labor, guys, and we move into the material. Any comments, any questions? Any comments, any questions? Any comments, any questions, gentlemen? Okay, moving into the material. So the second thing, now you're going to get all your material cost into the summary worksheet that you guys have done with me. You need to add the switch gear. So you need to account for the lighting fixtures and the gear. So remember, that's the code. We added the code. You guys are going to be doing it for me. And you need to add also for small tools and taxes and waste and theft. Now we're done with the labor. We need to have our material and add to our material the quotation as well as the waste and the small tools and so forth. Here you go. So I have here's my labor, my material, guys. I needed to add lighting fixture quote here, switch gear, miscellaneous material 10%, small tools 5% for waste and theft, and sales tax 7 or 7.725. You came up with this value in your material. Any comment, any question about your adjusted material cost? Adjusted material cost. Straightforward, right? So that's my adjusted material cost. This just talks, guys, about lighting fixture. You guys are going to be doing lighting fixtures and contacted Davis and Associate. Get me a bid for your lighting fixture. You're going to stick them in there. So you have to have quotes. Typically, 3 or 4 suppliers give you a quote, and you put the quotes. Make sure it includes shipping too. Your quotes for these. Miscellaneous material. You might require mounting, like mounting screws, pulling compound, wire connectors. So you have to accommodate for this extra miscellaneous material. We have 10%. This is manual. If you're doing it manually, 10%. If you're doing an estimating software, it assign a 3% for this value. Small tools, you need some cost for ladders, cords, cordless drills, screw guns, and all this good stuff. Hacksaw blades, all these have to be accommodated, guys, by small tools value. A switch gear, you have to, your suppliers, guys, switch, when they say switch gear, Adam, they mean every single panel inside your building, and transformer and UPS, the equipment, the electrical equipment. That's what I mean by switch gear. These we give them typically to four suppliers, and they give you a quote at the end, and you stick the lowest or the one that you prefer to work with, you feel comfortable with. It doesn't have to be the lowest. You stick it into your bid. And these, you guys, with the software, we're going to do it at the last minute. Make sure it says, always make sure it's it covers the shipping and the freight. Waste and theft. Waste and theft, guys, you know, you have to accommodate that for waste and theft inside for your project. Sales tax, make sure you pay attention to the state, county, and city taxes, right, when you assign your sales tax. Any comments, any question, guys, about your adjusted cost? Your adjusted cost. So we have our labor, Kerry, my friend. We adjusted our labor. We assigned a dollar value for the labor hours. We have our material. We adjusted our material, right, up it and down it based on the condition. The last thing we're going to do, guys, or one last thing, is going to do direct job costs. We need to add the direct job costs. Here's a list of direct job costs. Okay, often shown on drawing, but not specification. Here's a list of direct job costs that you have to accommodate for. So look at this one. We have allowances and contingencies, business and occupational fees, coordinated drawings, engineering work drawings, equipment rental. I'm not going to read all of them, guys. You have to accommodate. So the equipment rental, they have $2,000. We have permits and inspections, $300 for permits. So direct job costs, gentlemen and ladies, we're having $300 for this tiny little project that we have. Any comments, guys? Any questions? Any comments? Any questions? Any comments? Any questions about that? So that's my direct job cost, like we did. Allowances, contingencies, includes allowance required by the specification. Consider clause to protect dramatic price increase. So steel and copper, guys, can fluctuate. Most of the bids that we do typically say 3 to 6 months, valid for 3 to 6 months. Because why? Because the copper can go up and down, and you get caught with that wave. Business and occupational fees. If you need a license, business license, or pay an occupational fee, so you have to accommodate for that one to do that particular job in a different state, for example. Coordination drawings. Some projects like hospitals require you to have a BIM or Revit MEP coordination, guys. You're going to get into major projects. So who's going to be doing that? How are you going to recoup this money, right? These are coordination between all the disciplines before you build the system. So you're going to have a BIM coordinator in your company doing all this work. You're going to assign their time and dollars into the project. So coordination of drawings, very, very, very important. Very important, gentlemen. Engineering work drawings, make changes to the jobs design. If you if you are to modify, Jeff would love that one. If you are to modify what the engineers have designed, and you have to resubmit for the engineer's approval, so that will take time, right? So you have to accommodate for this. Equipment, equipment like trailers, computers, fax, copy machines, radios, cell phones, office personnel, vehicles, related job expenses. Now you guys are managing a business. Can you see that? It's not just taking a couple of conduits and calling it a day. This, as a good project manager, this should be in the back of your mind. A lot of people, guys, based on their histories act, like your dad probably will take, okay, based on my history, I'm all this thing, the junk that Chad talk about from A to Z, I'm going to add 10% because I know if I've done it. 10% above my value, and that will cover everything. You see what I mean, guys? Based on your history. A lot of people know their business really well, so they can adjust this one without getting into the detail that we're showing. The detail is for you to not to forget things. Job insurance and bonds. If you have a bond or an insurance for, you have to accommodate for part of this bond or insurance directly to the job that you're doing, right? Who's going to pay for the interest on this bond or insurance? OSHA compliance, safety, rails, straps, PPE, guys, ladder tie downs, all these things, OSHA will force you as a contractor to meet the safety standards. So that might increase your, you have to have more money allocated for meeting certain OSHA requirement. So these things to keep in mind as a project manager. Again, you guys are project managers. Out of town expenses, you take Zach into Texas, and they have to pay their lodging, their meals, internet, gas, long distance calls, and all this good stuff. So if the job is out of town and you're using your employees to go out of town, you have to pay attention. Makes sense for this. Parking fees. Major cities, guys, parking fees can be $15, $20 an hour. So you have to accommodate for parking fees, or at least be aware of it. Permits and inspection. Permits and inspection can go from $100 all the way to a couple of $100,000 based on where you are and what type of permit you have to do, and which are you going to pull it from the city or the state and so forth. So I think I can't remember how much I told you guys, $600 or $500 permitting electrical. So that you have to take into consideration. This is it. Where possible, have the owner/contractor responsible for the cost of permit. Does that work all the time? Go to the owner and say, pull the permit yourself. Typically, electrically, guys, we pull our permits and add it to the cost. Public safety. Does the job require safety cones, barricades, security? There's also have to pay attention to add more cost if that's happening. Recycling. If you have to recycle hazardous material, Jeff, you have to pay for recycling, hauling, proper containment, and packaging. That will be another added. Remember, we added these as a labor too, if your labor are going to do it. Now it's adding it as a cost, an extra cost for the project. Storage should include the cost for containers and trailers on the storage if you have to store material on site. And this says if the project goes south, guys, mean bad, you might not be able to get your stuff because it will be held by the owner. Temporary power. Be sure you are clear in your proposal what you intended to provide in terms of temporary power. Don't agree for provide temporary wiring as needed. Look at this example. They're saying temporary power. Indicate when you have a temporary power, guys, indicate how many feeders and what the size and what the voltage. Because the temporary power can be 480, 200 amps, or 480, 277, or it can be 281, 123 phase, 400 amps, or it could be as easy as 100 amp, 120, 240. So make sure you specify how many poles, how many amps, what's the voltages. Otherwise, it will be hard. Temporary power does not include maintenance and repair or utility connection charges. Be sure to say that if the repair is not part of what you're doing. Case study, look at this. They're saying there's a contractor agreed to provide temporary power. Guess what happened? For 1 year, after 1 year, guys, so where did that go, that case? Okay, the contractor provided generator, fuel, and maintenance for 1 year. So provided power, the utility does not have power close enough to the job. Because the contractor agreed to provide power, he has to put a generator for 1 year, fueling, the gen for all the disciplines. So see how much that will cost you versus tying to the grid. So these are mistakes that you can do in the field. Testing and certification. Measuring wiring, guys, and ground resistance. If you have to measure the resistivity of the systems, everybody knows what measuring. When you put your feeders, before you energize them, you have to test the insulation of the conductors. Who's going to be doing that? Is it accommodated? Are you going to be doing it? You have to add time for it. Resistance of the grounding electrode system have to be accommodated for that one too. Trash disposal, make sure you cover who's going to be doing that. Utility charges and fees, are you paying all the electrical bills or the owner is paying it? So clarify this one. Okay, any comments, guys? Any questions about all these costs? Any comments? Any questions? Brian? No? How many project managers do I have here? Do I have any? Yes? 3, 4? Okay. Then when you add all this, they call it estimated prime cost. You add all your stuff. So estimated simply a term used to identify the subtotal cost of labor, material, and direct cost. Add all of them, guys. The direct cost, the adjusted labor material, they call it estimated prime cost. So here's the labor cost, the burden. Can you guys see you have labor cost, you have your burden, you have your material, direct job cost. This $48,000 or $5,000 is your prime cost. Prime cost. Now the last thing is we're going to add to the prime cost is overhead. We're going to add overhead. So let's go to the overhead. Here's how they define the overhead, guys. Costs related to the operation and management of a company, such as rent, insurance, vehicle, administrative salaries, professional fees, and so on, is known as overhead. Overhead is the cost to manage the labor. Anyone who does not, well, depend how, for the most part, if you don't carry the tools, you're an overhead, unless you assign yourself as part of the project, as on the project, guys. People who work in the office are your vehicles, your administrative work, salaries, electricity of your office, all overhead. So you have to accommodate for your overhead. Here's a couple of things, guys. You have your direct job. Look at this. They are accommodating overhead expenses, salaries, and compensation. Those are for the office people. Advertising, auto and gas, benefit, interest, all these are accommodated as your overhead. This stuff is all your overhead. So almost 30% of your sale, can you guys see 30% of your sale is overhead. And if your profit is 40% and you did not accommodate for 30% of your overhead expenses, your profit will be dropping down to 10%. Does that make sense? If you think you have a 40% profit right here based on what you've done so for the prime cost, when you add all your overhead in the office, you get a 30%. So that 30% will be deducted from the 40% for an average of 10%. So you reduce your profit by 10% because of overload. So long story short, you have to accommodate for the for the overhead. Thank you. Overload for the overhead. Any comments, any questions, guys, about the overhead? Accommodating. Here's that thing in yellow is all your overhead stuff that you have to do. Overhead, business volume. If you have a bigger company, guys, your overhead typically lower per project because you can you can use the fax for all the projects and electricity for tons of projects. If you're a smaller company, your overhead will be a little bit higher per project, because you use a fax machine for one job versus using a fax machine for 15 jobs. So that's just a few things about the jobs. So medium contract income statement ending. So this is more, guys, about the profit and how you accommodate for your taxes. So we have net profit before taxes. Net profit before taxes 5%. If that's my situation, look at that. 30 subtract 25 from 30, get you 5% profit because of the overhead stuff that you have. Overhead application. Without, okay, but need no. So here's a couple of suggestions for overhead calculation, guys. There are two methods of applying it. Percentage to the prime cost. You apply a percentage to your cost as your overhead, or you apply a rate per hour. I think the project that we did, guys, in the residential, we did $13 for overhead. That's managing everything you do. Or you can add a percentage. Okay, percentage when applying the job are similar to the size. So this just talks about if work when applied to the jobs that are similar in size and content, the percentage be used if doing residential, should not be used if you're doing residential, commercial, service, blah, blah. So there are two ways, like I said, guys. You add, at the end of this analysis, they say, add like your job average for the dollar value, add equivalent to job average. So if your company, I don't know, that's a little bit high though. If your company is charging $18 an hour to bid the job, add another $18 an hour as an overhead. So so that's what the recommendation for, at least for this. Percentage is suitable use on similar jobs where the ratio of the material cost to labor cost is approximately the same from job to job. Material to labor, good from job to job, use a percentage. Only has to carefully to apply the project, guys, that we did. We put 10% overhead on our project, commercial project. I told you to do that. But this is going through the whole calculation for it. Since overhead, okay. So since overhead is directly related to the labor, so then typically we apply the overhead to the labor only, not to the material. Okay, overhead man hour calculated by dividing overhead dollars for a given period of time by the field man hour. That's exactly how we found the job average, guys. So here's what they're saying. If you want to find the overhead, here's how much you did. This was your this will be your shop average. Then you allocate exactly the same amount of dollars as your shop average as your overhead. So basically, your overhead is $18 as well per man hour or per person hour. So that's a few things. Okay, apply the overhead to the job cost per hours. Better seek advice of accountant. Then talks about the accountant, all this stuff. Okay, so based on this recommendation, guys, your overhead is going to be equivalent to your shop average. Or you can have like the job that we said, guys. Usually, you're going to maintain your overhead between 10 to 20%, 10 to 20% overhead. So break even. The last thing, guys, you add everything, including your overhead, your expenses, everything together, and that will get you the break even. So here you go, gentlemen. You got all your prime. You got your overhead $18 per hour. Jeremy, my friend, you got your $18 per hour here. You got this is your overhead. Added them. Now to break even, gentlemen, I need for this particular job, I need almost $7,000. Kerry, any comments, any questions, gentlemen? So you added the labor cost, the burden, the material cost, the direct job cost, prime cost, and overhead. Guys, there's a lot of talk here, but really, the sheet that I gave you at the beginning, the one with the residential project, if you walk through it, that's exactly slicing it in a little bit more details. So that's basically break even that you shall not live without. That job direct cost, percentage prime cost. Okay, so any comments, guys? Any question for you break even cost? So the idea, guys, is the break even cost will tell you will not go below this, because if you go below this, you're going to lose on this job. That's kind of the idea of having a break even. Break even, I covered everything. Should I run break even floating? You know, if you're a small business, guys, and you paid all your expenses, including you as an owner and everybody else, and you did not make money for the company in a bad economy, that might not be bad. But ultimately, when business, Brian, to make money and make profit, that's the business that we're in. Our business to make money and make profit. The job we have not added. The profit have not been added yet, and so that's basically it. Chapter 6 will add the profit for us, but that's I'm going to go back directly to this one. I'll end at this. Any comments, guys? Any questions about the break even? Any comments? Any questions about the break even? So summarize. You got your labor cost adjusted, assigned a dollar value, shop average or job average to it. That will give me, in this case, 1975. I got my labor burden, say 10% labor burden for all the benefits and expenses. Material cost adjusted, and I add direct job cost to it. That's called prime cost, my friends. And then you add your overhead to it, and you got yourself the beautiful term of break-even cost. Break-even cost is how much will cost you to do this project. So what's the bid price? The bid price is how much are you willing to sell this project to the customers. And that, gentlemen, will be in chapter 6. We'll talk about the profit. We add a little bit of profit on it, and that will get me the selling price for this project. Any comments, any questions? Any comments, any questions? So my advice for all of you, the ones who want to be project manager and so forth, please read this chapter. There's good suggestion for project managers. If you can't handle these details, maybe you're not cut to be a project manager and estimator. There's a lot of room, guys, for designers and a lot of people who do a lot of good stuff, but um, counting pennies and managing projects is not part of what they do. Any comments, any questions? Joe, my friend? Cool. That's all I have, guys. I'm going to give you your test back, and I'll go over the test, and then my expectation is, guys, you hit the ground running, and let's take off the commercial project.